Me and Michael, he's our artist relations manager. We were talking. He's like, I have a lot of questions, and I go, what are your questions? And so he listed a plethora of questions with regard to the academe, with regard to what you used to do. A lot of questions, and I was like, I just want to know why he's running. So let's start there.
Sure.
Why are you running?
I'm running for Congress because over the past few years, I've grown really tired of how politics has always taken priority over people. And in America as a whole, you always hear the left and the right always arguing, and nothing's done. Actually, this 118th Congress is going down in history as the most ineffective one, with only 40 bills passed, one of which being removing whole milk and putting 2%. And when it comes to food scarcity all across the U.S., kids don't have a meal. It's important that they receive the nutrition. We're not trying to give them M&Ms for breakfast.
That's right.
But most importantly, I'm running because I want to represent the Filipinos. In the United States, I'm the only one running right now, as far as I know, running for Congress in the entire U.S. And if I do get in, I'll be the first full Filipino in Congress. And, given that we're the largest population outside of the U.S., of Filipinos, outside of Philippines, rather, we don't have that representation. Just like our other Asian brothers and sisters, we're not like people who are Vietnamese, Korean, Chinese. So I really want to come in and I want to bring in and really highlight and strengthen that relationship we have, because we've always been a part of the U.S. We're the fabric of it too. But it's not that widely known.
Why is that so? Why is it because we're subservient? Why do you think we don't assert ourselves too much?
I think it just starts with relatability, and also, seeing the face out there. Like I was just meeting someone earlier, a Filipino woman inside of Seafood City, and she said, "Oh no, I don't want to vote because I don't like any of the presidential selections." And I said, "Yeah, but voting goes beyond the president. There's the local, there's everything." And she said, "Yeah, but what are you going to do for me?" And I think that's the same sort of sentiment of everybody. If they don't see it directly impacting them, they don't see a face that's familiar, how can you relate and say, what are they going to do for me?
Sige nga, let's go there. You understand Tagalog, di ba?
Yes.
Maraming Tagalog or konti lang?
Maraming.
Okay. No, the reason why I'm asking, maganda kasi yung question that question of what can you do for me? Yeah, we're so detached with regard to the presidential election, right? And sometimes when you're in Washington, the fear is you're young, you're passionate, you might get eaten by the swamp, or they might try to elbow you around and try to bully you around. What district are you going to represent?
So I'm running in District 31,
Okay.
California's congressional district. And in 31, it comprises of 18 cities. So it goes all the way from Laverne, all the way to West Covina, La Puente, El Monte, even up to Baldwin Park in Azusa. So it's a lot of cities. And, in that mix, there's a lot of Filipino people. There's also a high number of Latinos. It's like a very...
Right.
Ethnic mix of people, like a lot of immigrants, immigrant families who are there. So that district-wise, that's there. Very diverse set, very actually diverse district compared to other districts. So that's the congressional district that I'm in. But this one in particular, I grew up in. I'm born and raised here in LA. My family, like after all the LA King riots, they decided to move further east.
Yeah.
Except the thing is, when they moved further east, it was such a small community. There was less than like 4,000 people. Now there's over like 50,000+ people there.
Right.
In the time that I grew up. Being in this district, I've really seen how it's changed, what's been good, what's not been so good lately. And being one of the candidates that actually grew up there, I didn't, move there from another state.
So to echo that person's, one of your constituents that you met at Seafood City, what can you do for her or him or us in general?
Well, for me, being at the front of it is representing Filipinos on the national level, but also empowering our local communities. Because like myself, growing up, I guess, further east in a smaller community, it was hard for me to connect to like Filipino culture, to
Right.
Filipino, let's say compared to me growing up in downtown LA or Glendale or somewhere. It was hard for me to connect, like even to programs. So for me, like what I would start with is definitely our youth. Once I'm in Congress, I would start in and work with the consulates. I would work with different organizations to come in and try and promote different programs that we can do to make a nice cultural exchange between the Philippines and U.S. citizens, to empower young Filipino leaders, give them a platform and a voice that's on a national level, not just state or not just city or municipal, something on the more national level, and connecting all of us across the U.S., a unification of sorts, rather than like happening, let's just say in New York and California and Texas. Now we're going to put everyone together. That would be the one thing. But I would say in particular, if we're hitting more harder issues on the healthcare side in this district, I am the only healthcare advocate. Short history, but when I was 15, I actually worked with the Honorable Mervyn Dimely. Unfortunately, he passed now.
Yeah.
When I see service, I've learned from all these different individuals. Some of them were also Congressman Dreyer, who used to be congressman in my district, and Senator Feinstein. So like I was bipartisan as it gets. But when I was 15 in Compton and Linwood, we worked on childhood obesity, diabetes, and legislation geared towards removing fast food restaurants within a mile of each other. So like, for instance, you couldn't build McDonald's and then, half a mile later, another McDonald's. So the idea is that the kids in these communities, they're not going to be trapped by the McNuggets.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah. Because that's what causes the obesity and diabetes. So luckily I worked with them as their teenage representative, and they actually the assembly got it passed. But also Assemblyman Dimely, I knew him at the time when, ironically enough, he was the one, he's the congressman in my district right now, 31, back in 83. I just learned that recently. What he did for Filipinos back in 83 was the ones who fought in World War II, who didn't have citizenship. He fought in Congress to get them citizenship and get it granted. And he fulfilled that promise.
You know the epiphany, Kurt, that I'm having while you're talking is, yes, you're running in the state of California, but then again, you're going to Washington when you win. Not if you win, when you win. You're going to Washington. And if you get a bill passed, it's not just for Californians. It's not just for Filipinos. It's for the whole United States, correct?
Yes, that's precisely correct. And that's why, for me, I'm doing my best to push as much as I can. And I told everybody, although, I've always been there behind the scenes, but now that you're seeing me out there, I'm not going to stop. This is just the beginning of it all. Because really, that's actually, I'm glad you pointed that out, because speaking to everyone in different cities, they're like, oh, I live in Cerritos, I live in El Segundo. Like, how can I vote for you? I'm like, you know what? Even if you can't vote for me, help spread the word. Because you get me up there, I represent all the national stuff. And then I also work with all the local leaders. So now you've put us all together in one room, and now you have a formidable lineup of people that could handle the national issues. Like, that's why for me, when that person said that, like, what are you going to do? Like, for me, to echo like what I've learned, my mentors, I would directly impact people from day one. I'm not giving you a promise of 2 years from now. Like, I feel the word change, they always say that we're going to change, we're going to transform, but in actuality, it's never acted on. Like, for me, for example, if we look at one issue in particular, let's say medical debt. A lot of people face medical debt. Even earlier I heard of someone that recently had a major healthcare issue, and now they needed to get their fundings because of medical debt. One thing that I would do that's within the powers of Congress is I would go in there and I would tell them, take that off the consumer credit score, because that's within the powers to do that.
Yes.
Yeah. And now you give the person financial freedom. So if you're someone, which is like most of us, let's say you're living on a a week-to-week paycheck. Or let's say, you have this major health problem. Now you need a bunch of treatments. At least that way, you have the freedom that's there. But on the healthcare side, I also want to increase the access to life-saving technology, because it's been sitting there.